Uh-oh. Motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It was either yesterday or the day before news broke that Holm, who's rumored to be returning to the sport of boxing, made the announcement she would be joining the Global Fight League. The Global Fight League, similar to what you see in Team Combat League with boxing, is a league where MMA fighters, experienced ones, work as a unit, work as a team representing a given city. Holm will be representing New York.
But isn't she from New Mexico?
Albuquerque, to be exact. I don't know, maybe New Mexico just doesn't produce enough MMA fighters to have a team centered around that. Global Fight League actually released a music video that I will not subject you to here, featuring all the fighters, and I tried not to throw up a little in my mouth as I watched it. It was AI generated.
It was cringe.
Music, the lyrics, the look of it, looked like the YMCA meets the Spartans.
It was really awkward.
But does this mean that because Holly has joined the Global Fight League, she won't be returning to the sport of boxing? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure because if the Global Fight League is anything like Team Combat League in boxing, then Holly will only be fighting one round at a time. That's the way it is in boxing. In Team Combat League, the fighters only fight for one round at a time, working as a unit, and the unit that wins the most rounds wins the event. Theoretically, that would leave Holm with plenty of time to still endeavor in the world of boxing, and she may not be getting at Global Fight League enough to just sustain off of that. Thus, an endeavor into boxing might still be more lucrative. I saw people's reactions to the news.
A guy who goes by the name Raw B said, a league full of washed up, old fighters.
If you go to the GFL's Twitter page where they made the announcement of who would be joining them, most of the reactions to that news were just like this one, because you are talking about a lot of fighters that are up there in age that were with other fighting federations. Holly and Tyrone Woodley were with the UFC. Some of those fighters, I think, were with Bellator.
The other ones.
The now defunct Bellator. I think some of those fighters were with the PFL. You're essentially talking about a lot of fighters that are in the twilight years of their careers, up there in age, but aren't ready to retire. That's what the roster primarily consists of.
I think I saw Sage Northcutt.
Who?
Lavender Potpourri isn't necessarily up there in age. He isn't, but some would say he's a washed-up UFC fighter. A guy that was hyped up for a short while, but didn't pan out.
So now he's doing this. And this speaks to what I said a couple of days ago, that Holm, continuing in the world of mixed martial arts after having been there so long already, that's not going to make any waves. That's not going to make a splash. Most MMA fans would say that Holly's done all she can do in the octagon, and at 43 years old, there's just not much more left to give. But if she endeavored into the world of boxing, made a comeback in boxing, that might make more news, and that might pay better if she can wrangle that comeback into an Amanda Serrano fight, presumably promoted by Most Valuable Promotions.
Get a nice sized bag.
We talked about the plan of action, that theoretically she could target the winner of Han versus Turlip at 135 pounds for their WBA title, go after whoever wins that fight.
Beat him, take the title, then bring it to an Amanda Serrano showdown, which could be lucrative, as it would be a battle of the legends. Amanda Serrano's a living legend, so is Holly, and you could do something between them at 135.
Theoretically, and I'm not completely sure that's off the table. She could theoretically still make a comeback to the world of boxing.
The Boxing Scene article that detailed Holly's potential return to the sport stated that she's looking for the biggest bag, the biggest check. Well, I think boxing might be able to provide her with that a bit better than this GFL thing she's doing.
Much do you really think they're paying her to fight for 1 round at a time in a contest?
But that's the latest. She's joined the GFL. She appears to still be continuing her mixed martial arts career, perhaps with a side of boxing? We'll see.
Hey, yo, we're gonna be checking for any suspicious opponents on Diego Pacheco record. Y'all know he ain't got no suspicious opponents. 22-0 with 18 big wins coming by the way of knockout.
Hey, I really don't like, man, that you take advantage of dudes to make him look bad, bro. Like,
You feel like that?
Nah, yeah, like, man, let the dude be, bro.
Who you feel I did that with?
Nah, I just feel like if you find any little thing to make a dude look bad and you do it and make him look bad.
Nah, I don't. I always say they good fighters. I say that the opponents are suspicious.
But if you see something going on, something happens in someone's regular day life, you go online and post about it and make, you know what I'm saying, make them look bad.
Like on Twitter, you saying?
Anywhere, on Instagram.
Nah, not regular life stuff, like personal life.
Yeah, like personal
Nah,
shit.
like who?
You?
Nah, never who?
What you mean? Look at your face.
Man, look at my face, what, bro?
I might be confused.
Look at my face, what, bro? You getting me confused, bro? Yeah, you getting me confused, bro. You getting me confused. I'm not like that, bro. What's up?
That was Prince Fiorentino, who was assaulted by a member of Diego Pacheco's team ahead of this weekend's fight, presumably for something that he might have said online.
Or perhaps a case of mistaken identity.
WBA super featherweight champion Lamont Roach reacted to the video saying, "That's what fake boxing media personalities get. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often."
But what did Florence Henderson say?
It's Jeremy Fiorentino.
Well, okay, what did Fiorello LaGuardia say?
Nobody really knows. I've seen the guy's content myself. And the most that I can say is what he normally does is he'll go to a boxer's resume, the first couple of fights that they've had, and what he seems to do is highlight the journeymen and the gatekeepers that they fought at the very beginning of their careers and dub them as suspicious opponents.
But I wouldn't say he's disrespectful to the boxers, at least not from what I've seen. Doesn't really take shots at them, doesn't really get personal. It's all very PG, to be honest.
Another content creator in Two Tone the Superstar reacted to Lamont's reaction saying, ESPN, Fox, and etc. don't cover boxing like that, bro. Social media, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube is boxing media. Y'all boxers have zero media training and be extra emotional, only go to platforms that dick eat y'all. You gotta worry about having energy against Tank.
Is he right?
So the boxers themselves have never had all that great a relationship with the media, even back when the boxers were covered by journalists, actual journalists. When they were journalists, well, the boxers didn't like them either.
You know, because Lamont Roach said these are fake media guys.
These content creators and these vloggers, Lamont Roach doesn't look at them as legitimate members of the boxing media. But to Two Tone the Superstar's point, Two Tone is actually right. Boxing doesn't get the same coverage that it used to in America from major media outlets, to where they're being covered more often than not by actual journalists. No, more often than not, they're not.
Don't get the coverage it used to.
And the main ones covering the sport right now are the vloggers, are the content creators, those independent freelance members of the media that are basically just fans with a camera or fans with a channel, fans with an Instagram page. They're still making a contribution, giving the boxers and the boxing the coverage that they're not getting from the major outlets.
He's actually right.
He says the boxers have zero media training, which I happen to agree with. A lot of times, you can have a dynamic, exciting boxer in the boxing ring that on the microphone has the personality of a warm bus seat.
If not for these content creators caring about you, caring enough to cover you, who would?
He's not wrong in the respect that you do notice boxers want to be coddled. They only want to do interviews if they get softball questions. They only want to talk to the media that
Glazes them.
strokes their ego.
They've always been that way, though.
How many times across how many platforms did you see Mike Tyson lash out at an interviewer in his heyday? And what about Floyd Mayweather and his infamous blowout with Brian Kinney?
Talking to you the way I want to talk to you. You don't like it? Change your station.
You remember that? The boxers themselves have never had a great relationship with their critics. Perhaps it's because those are their critics.
Whether it's journalists, actual pundits in the previous era, or vloggers in this one.
They ain't got the best relationship, so perhaps the best advice for a content creator like the Florentino kid is, unless you have an established rapport with one of these boxers you're coming up to for a selfie or a video, unless you know that you're on good terms with them, you should assume that you're not.
Automatically.
These boxers don't like you, and you should stop trying to be their friend. Be all in their face, all in their space, smelling their cologne. You should stop that.
Don't do it.
There are more well-established interviewers within the boxing sphere that have a good rapport with a good number of boxers. There are some, but for the others, like the Florentino guy, you should just assume that these boxers don't like you, because in all likelihood, they already don't, whether they know who you are or they don't.
They don't like anybody being critical of them. The interviewers that they do get along with, like say a Dev Sani or a Michelle Joy Phelps, a Marcos Villegas, they get along with because they don't volunteer their opinions when conducting an interview. Their content is not opinion-based content.
A Rob Tebbett, a Radio Raheem.
They can get to the fighter and do the interview because in between one interview to the next, they're not trashing a fighter or being critical of a fighter's movements. They're not doing any of that. They don't upload opinion-based content like that Florentino guy.
If to any degree, any extent, that's the kind of content you shell out, you should automatically assume that there's a fighter or fighters that didn't like something you said. And acting on that assumption, you should not readily run up to them, looking for a selfie or an exclusive, lest you want to end up like Fiorello LaGuardia.
It's Prince Florentino.
It's pretty embarrassing. And you can expect to be embarrassed if you do what he did, because the fighters themselves relish the opportunity to embarrass their critics. Diego Pacheco, he thought this guy said something bad. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Lamont Roach don't care because he looks at it as a critic getting no less than what he deserves. Whether or not he actually deserved it
Doesn't matter. Is there a middle ground? I wouldn't say so. Any and every opinion-based content creator should keep their opinions to themselves and those who subscribe to them.
It's not that you're not allowed to have an opinion. As a consumer, as a customer, you're allowed your opinion. Volunteering it to the boxers themselves, however, that's the mistake.
You could be right. You could be right in what you're saying, your assertions, your conclusions, and whatever opinions you might have, and the fighter and his team still might not like it.
You're forgetting these fighters fight for a living. You're forgetting that you might be catching a fighter in the midst of a weight cut when they're cranky and grouchy.
Maybe they haven't had sex in a while, so they're not in a good mood.
So that when you come up to them doing whatever it is you're doing, smiling, pointing the camera in their face, yeah, they're not too happy with you.
Doesn't make it right, and they shouldn't behave the way that they do, but should is a four-letter word around here.
Should.
Or shouldn't. The boxers themselves, the athletes, have always been temperamental and a bit sensitive. That's always been the case. You could argue that because they're public figures, they should have thicker skin. But what did I just tell you about those shoulds?
Don't get embarrassed playing the should game.
It's a four-letter word. Myself, I don't consider myself a member of the media, and I can care less about conducting interviews when more often than not, you know exactly what the fighter or the fighter's promoter is going to say.
And I'm not the guy trying to rub elbows with you. I'm not trying to be your friend.
Pal around with you. Fighters rise and fall like the wheat. A relevant fighter 2 or 3 years ago may be deemed irrelevant 2 or 3 years later, so I place very little emphasis on the individuals.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
Now, you should best think of this channel as a product review, a boxing channel geared more towards boxing fans than people in boxing.
What's worth your hard-earned dollars? What should you spend your money on? What's going to happen in a fight? Who's going to win?
Who should you bet on? What's going to happen to the landscape? The kind of things that boxing fans talk about amongst themselves. Never mind the guys on the high horses.
You don't matter that much, and it's not that deep.
So that if you come across this channel and you hear something you don't like, it's your goddamn fault.
Nobody told you to listen, and nobody told you to come here.
There are plenty of other places to go and plenty of other content creators that are more willing to stroke your ego than I am. I'm gonna give it to you straight, because it's the only way I know how to give it to you.
Damn the selfies.
And the merch. I don't want to be your friend.
Sooner or later, I'm gonna say something you don't like.
But I don't give a damn, because I ain't got no hair on my tongue, and it's not written anywhere that I have to like everything you're doing.
After all, you need me more than I need you.
A controversy over the whole Boots Ortiz thing. Any message for anybody who was talking crap?
No, I don't even want to talk about that because we never really discussed that. They never talked to me about it. So and then you listen to some of the stuff that people were saying. They don't even. A lot of people didn't know nothing about it. See, what they took wrong was after we fought that fight. Boots said he might have to move up, but he still wanted to, take care of 147 first. But then they go on and say that, oh yeah, we got the fight signed and all. We didn't know nothing about that. I didn't know nothing about it. You know what I mean? So eventually he gonna get it too. You know what I mean? Eventually he gonna get it if he get one of them titles up there. He gonna get it too. I like them. I like all of them when they run their mouth, man. See, we don't do too much talking. We do our talking in the ring. His trainers and all of them. You know what I mean? I don't talk like that.
There is Bozy Ennis bumping his gums again, claiming that he doesn't like to talk much, yet it's his talking that seems to garner his son so much negative press. Vergil Ortiz caught wind of this Bozy Ennis interview, and he responded by saying, "You love the fighters and trainers who run their mouths, and you claim that you don't do any talking, but yet you were the one who went and said we turned down a fight with you when nothing of the sort was proposed to us. And you never followed up on that lie when I called it out. Pull up any tweet, interview, video, anything negative where I have went and quote-unquote ran my mouth about anything regarding the last fight not being made. We don't even talk about y'all."
It's true. Neither Vergil Ortiz or Robert Garcia, anybody on his side, spends a whole lot of time talking about Jaron Ennis. Vergil is en route to the Israel Madrimov fight. Boots himself is en route to the Stanionis fight. The reason people are not satisfied with that,
even though it is what both he and Eddie Hearn promised. They promised that Boots would be in a unification match in his next fight. If there are those who don't seem interested in that, it's because of Bozy, it's because of stuff Bozy says, it's because these guys have a habit of trying to drag fighters' names in the mud for fights they really aren't after.
started with Terrence Crawford. What was it, 2.5 years ago? They started with him.
Trying to drag his name in the mud. And at least then, there were more people willing to go along with that narrative until more people started paying attention. You guys didn't want to fight Terrence Crawford, you just wanted to use his name in interviews. Here it's the same thing.
You don't want to fight Vergil Ortiz, and you may have your reasons.
But you don't want to fight him. So when you don't fight him, after the fight is offered to you by Turkey El Sheikh, don't accuse them of being the talkative ones. They don't actually do all that much talking.
Overactive boxing, dads. Just another case.
Another chapter in the same book. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with Boots trying to stay at 147 long enough to unify it. I don't have a problem with that.
Even if it means foregoing a fight with Vergil at 154. Now, I take no issue with that, but I do take issue with slandering them, with trying to drag their names in the mud. I don't know why Bozy does it.
Because it's not Boots. Not really. Boots doesn't actually say all that much.
It's his dad.
Sometimes I think the interviewers set him up, asking questions that they already know the answers to, because it's well known what the both of these fighters are going to be doing in their next fights. They seem to be moving in different directions, yet the interviewer took it upon himself to ask him about Vergil and ask him about 154.
Why?
Doesn't really make it okay for Bozy to embellish or exaggerate. The moment the guy mentioned Junior Middle, he should have told him they're not going up there yet.
They're about to unify. That's the focus. That's the first order of business.
And just leave it there.